On the morning of November 19, 2005, a roadside bomb tore through a U.S. Marine convoy in the Iraqi town of Haditha, killing one Marine instantly and severely wounded two others. Within hours, the military released its official account of what happened next. The report stated that 15 civilians had tragically died from the bomb's blast, and that 8 armed insurgents were killed in a subsequent firefight. But when the victims' bodies arrived at the local hospital, doctors noticed a glaring inconsistency. None of the dead showed any sign of blast trauma or shrapnel wounds. Medical staff and an Iraqi human rights worker documented the reality of the scene. Bullet holes riddled the walls of nearby homes, and the victims, which included grandparents and a 1-year-old child, had all died from close-range gunshot wounds to the head and chest. We are routinely told that military atrocities are chaotic accidents or the work of isolated rogue soldiers.
Yet, examining a century of historical data reveals a distinct pattern. These events are the opening steps of a deeply systemic playbook designed from the top down to hide the truth and protect the chain of command. The groundwork for a cover-up begins long before any official investigation. The first step relies on rewriting the rules of engagement to broaden who qualifies as a valid military target. During the Philippine-American War, General Jacob H. Smith ordered his troops to kill anyone capable of bearing arms. When his officers asked for clarification, Smith explicitly defined that threshold as boys as young as 10 years old. Decades later, during the Vietnam War's Operation Speedy Express, the military mechanized this tactic. They designated heavily populated regions of the Mekong Delta as free fire zones, allowing overwhelming firepower from artillery and helicopter gunships to be unleashed without distinguishing between soldiers and civilians. On paper, the campaign was an overwhelming victory, with the Army reporting a body count reaching 11,000 enemy combatants. But physical evidence told a different story. Out of those 11,000 killed, troops recovered only 750 weapons. The thousands of unarmed victims were retroactively labeled as Viet Cong to justify the artillery strikes. By legally classifying all dead bodies as enemy combatants, the military institution successfully transforms indiscriminate slaughter from a prosecutable war crime into a highly decorated metric of operational success. When an undeniable massacre occurs, the immediate reflex of the chain of command is rarely to investigate. It is to suppress evidence and fabricate a success story. In the summer of 1950, during the Korean War, American commanders ordered troops to block refugee movements at a railway bridge near the village of No Gun Ri. Declassified documents show that commands explicitly authorized soldiers to open fire on waves of fleeing South Korean civilians. Hundreds of women, children, and elderly refugees were killed. Yet these deadly orders were deliberately scrubbed and omitted from the Army's official internal reports on the incident. The starkest example of command complicity occurred at My Lai in Vietnam. American soldiers raped, mutilated, and murdered hundreds of unarmed villagers. Instead of a court-martial, the unit was congratulated, and officers up the chain of command officially recorded the slaughter as a great victory over 128 Viet Cong fighters. The military's internal oversight mechanisms failed to catch these atrocities because they are designed to protect the institution's reputation above all else. Because the internal system closes ranks to defend its own, the truth almost never originates from within the military oversight apparatus. It required the intervention of an independent journalist, Seymour Hersh, alongside a whistleblower who refused to participate, to finally break the official silence on My Lai. The victims of No Gun Ri waited nearly half a century. It took a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigation by the Associated Press in 1999 to force the U.S. and South Korean governments to acknowledge the bullet holes left in that concrete railway bridge. In Haditha, the fabricated roadside bomb narrative held firm until human rights workers smuggled out video footage of the aftermath inside the victims' homes. Without independent actors risking their careers or their lives to expose the physical evidence, the military's fabricated after-action reports would simply become the permanent historical record. Even when physical evidence forces a public trial, the final stage of the playbook engages, the illusion of accountability. The political and legal systems maneuver to ensure the perpetrators avoid true punishment. Following the My Lai massacre, 26 soldiers were charged. Ultimately, only Lieutenant William Calley was convicted,
and after presidential intervention, he served just 3.5 years under house arrest for the murder of 22 villagers. The outcome in Haditha was even lighter. Despite the deaths of 24 unarmed civilians, a multi-year military prosecution collapsed. Not a single Marine involved went to prison. This shield of protection extends directly to private military contractors. After Blackwater Guards gunned down 17 Iraqi civilians in Nisour Square, several were convicted in federal court. But in December 2020, President Donald Trump granted full pardons to all 4 men. Dropped charges, wrist slaps, and executive pardons send a clear institutional signal. Participating in systemic violence carries no genuine legal risk for the perpetrators. While commanding officers receive quiet retirements and pardons, the survivors carry the cost.
Decades after my lie, one child survivor recalled, "Everyone in my family was killed. They threw me into a ditch full of dead bodies. I was covered with blood and brains." The deepest tragedy of these events is that the system meant to prevent them actively shields the perpetrators. Until the playbook of the cover-up is dismantled and accountability reaches the highest chains of command, history is guaranteed to repeat itself.